This short video will discuss Major Assignment 4 instructions, as well as we will talk briefly about the framework for success in post-secondary writing. So throughout this semester, we've discussed how stories change not only through time, but also how audience purpose and context can change the rhetorical situation surrounding a text. Through readings, viewings, listening, short writings, class activities, major assignments, we've learned how to explore the conversations that are around us. In this final unit, you're going to demonstrate all of those skills that you've practiced, discussed, and examined, not only in this class, but in your own personal first year composition sequence. So, for this assignment, we'll be examining our own voices and reflect on the work completed in the first year composition sequence. I'll talk a little bit more in a second about what the first year composition sequence might look like for you. So, we are going to use the 8 habits of mind from the Framework for Success in Post-Secondary Writing. The Framework for Success in Post-Secondary Writing is a framework and position statement put out by the National Council of Writing Program Administrators, the National Council of Teachers of English, and the National Writing Project. And we'll discuss the framework a little bit later in this video. But you're going to use that framework and the 8 habits of mind presented in that framework to examine your own unique first year composition sequence experience. And you're going to reflect on how that your work is demonstrates the different 8 habits of mind. So the purpose of this assignment is to have you reflect upon your experience in first year composition as you're wrapping up your study of composition. For most students, finishing English 102 means they're completing their composition requirements in order to meet their educational goals. Most students need English 101 and 102, and as far as traditional composition courses, typically they don't need any further composition courses as they move forward in their academic careers. Of course, if your humanities or an English major or some other sort of major like that might require, more composition courses, or other majors might require composition courses for writing in that discipline. But most in their general education, they're going to take English 101 and 102. And so when you're wrapping up English 101, when you're wrapping up English 102, you're kind of checking that requirement off of your list. So, the framework for success in post secondary writing tells us the ways of approaching learning that are both intellectual and practical are crucial for all college level learners. Beyond knowing particular facts or completing mandatory readings, students who develop these habits of mind approach learning from an active stance. These habits help students succeed in a variety of fields and disciplines. We are going to use these 8 habits of minds to reflect on our own personal growth in each area at the conclusion of our first year composition sequence. So, you might be saying, that sounds all lovely, Professor B, but by what do you mean about this? What are we going to actually be doing? Well, I'm glad you asked. Let's talk a little bit about the specifics of the process. So, again, just to review, the topic is going to be for this assignment, is going to be to use the 8 habits of mind from the framework as a guideline to create a reflective piece in which you examine your own personal growth in each area throughout your personal college composition experience. So, in order to create this reflection, you, as the writer, may select the genre you see as most effective for conveying your personal reflection. This can be a traditional essay like a Word document, or if you're feeling like you'd like to be more creative and really explore what you've learned in your first year composition sequence, you may choose to use a digital format. That might be a PowerPoint with a voiceover. You might create a video using something like YouTube or GoodNotes or Canva, in which you explore your reflection visually and digitally. It's really up to you to decide how you want to present the reflection. And Either any way that you choose, as long as you're meeting the requirements of the assignment, it's fine with me. I just want you to pick the genre that you feel most illustrates what you've learned throughout your first year composition experience. If you do decide to use a digital tool that isn't listed in the assignment instructions, if you could email me to let me know um, what you've chosen, that would be great. That way I can make sure I can access your files. So if you look through the assignment directions, it's going to give you some specifics on like what your introduction might look like, what a thesis might look like, what the 8 habits of mind are, what the length requirement is, proofreading, editing, conclusion, all those sorts of things. You can read, hopefully, at the end of English 102, you can read. So I'll let you read those things on your own, but I just wanted to kind of talk to you a little bit about some things that you might um, need a little more explanation about. For example, you might wonder how exactly you're going to define first year composition for yourself. So, obviously, in first year composition at Midlands Tech, we have students that come from a variety of backgrounds and educational and professional experiences. And so, everyone's first year composition sequence might look a little bit different. For many traditional students, a first year composition sequence is typically English 101 in the fall and English 102 in the spring in your first year. Well, that might fit, for the traditional goes to college straight out of high school and, goes right on through. That might work for them, but for most people, maybe you take English 101 your freshman year. Maybe you take English 102 your sophomore year. Maybe you took English 101 10 years ago and then you came back and your credit was still good, so you just jumped right into 102. That's fine. Just tell me about your experience. Maybe you also had to take an English 100 class, or maybe you took a fast track class, or maybe in combination with your 101 class, you took a studio section. Again, perfectly fine. Just tell me your experience. Some students might be dual enrolling students. You might be taking English 101 and 102 while you're completing high school, so you might not technically be a traditional first year student. That's okay. You're still taking a first year composition sequence. It's good. Tell me about it. Some students might have tested out of English 101 through CLEP or some sort of AP program, so maybe you never took English 101. That's fine. Tell me about it. Tell me what your experience has been about. No matter how you've completed the sequence towards your degree, you can still tell me your experience and reflect upon it. It's your experience. There's the secret here is there is no right or wrong. So you do want to make sure that you have an introduction and you have a thesis, and you can read more about what a thesis and an introduction might look for this, but I do want to talk to you a little bit about the 8 habits of mind. So in your reading assignment, you're going to read the framework for success in post-secondary writing, and that framework is going to talk to you about all of the 8 habits of mind. So, I just want to talk to you a little bit about the framework for success in post secondary writing. So, this framework was created by the Council of Writing Program Administrators, the National Council of Teachers of English, and the National Writing Project. And I really rely on this framework when I'm developing my courses in order to help you get the most effectiveness out of the assignments and what you're learning, not just to quiz you on your knowledge of English and things like that, but really to help you develop the good habits of mind that are listed in this framework to help you approach learning not only in your writing, but as an intellectual practice, a practice that's going to support you in all types of different writing and thinking and learning that you use in every discipline and in your work fields and professional lives. So, the 8 habits of mind that the framework identifies are curiosity, openness, engagement, creativity, persistence, responsibility, flexibility, and metacognition. So, what you're going to want to do in your reflection is you're going to want to talk about how, in your personal first year composition sequence. So you can include English 101 if you took that. You can include a studio, you can include 100, you can include professional experience. Whatever you've been doing in during the first year composition sequence for you, you of course should also include this class. You're going to describe how you have shown these 8 habits through your work and how you have demonstrated those habits and what your strengths are in those habits. Now, you might read through this framework and say, oh, wow, I really should work more on openness and thinking about new ways of being and thinking in the world. When I look at my writing, I can see where I've resisted that. And that's okay. You can have weaknesses. Like, no one's perfect. Tell me about it. It's okay. I just want to hear you talk about these 8 habits and how you demonstrate those habits or where you might need to work on those habits to become a better intellectual thinker and writer in your field and as you're trying to achieve your academic goals. So, just to sum up, you're going to be using these 8 habits of mine to help you write the reflection. So here they give you like just a little overview of them, but as you read through the document, they actually break down each habit of mind and explain like what specifically that means and what when we're talking about writing that means. So take a look at those things as you're developing your reflection. So let's look at one like let's look at curiosity as an example. So in your reflection, you might write about curiosity. You might talk about like what's a specific topic or what was an assignment in which you demonstrated um, curiosity about a specific about information that you were told to look for. So you could give assignment instruction. You could give like an example from an old assignment, or you could give an example from a past discussion that you had. It doesn't have to be completely. You don't have to go through like all of your writing and have quotes from all of your major assignments in each habit, though it would be nice to see that in a few of the habits. But if you can give anecdotes or little stories about how you've demonstrated this, that's really what I'll be looking for here. So you'll read through these habits and think about how you've learned these different things. Like for example, responsibility, that might be showing how, maybe in English 101 you really like had poor attendance and really had a hard time getting on track, but in English 102 you had great attendance. You could use that as an example. Show me what you've learned and how you've learned it, and show me how it matches up to these 8 habits of mine. It's really difficult for me to give super specific examples because everyone's experience is so different that everyone's reflection is going to look different. And that's okay. I hope one of the one things that you take away from this class is that you really need to trust yourself as a writer and a thinker, and especially when it comes to developing good habits. So, the 8 habits of mind are really going to be the glue that holds together your reflection. So, how long does this have to be? This is the question I get all the time, and it always makes me go, ugh, because it's like you know how long it should be. However long it takes you to be thorough and thoughtful when you're examining the elements. You know, probably a MWA4 reflective project that um, has like 8 bullet points and then an example is probably like an F assignment, right? If you just had like the habits and then one example and that's it, you didn't even put it in paragraph form or you didn't even, you know, talk about it or do anything extra to that, that doesn't seem like you've thoughtfully and thoroughly examined your reflection. But most students are going to give examples and discuss each habit of mine and how it relates to their personal journey, and they're going to get the length that they need to be, and it's going to be fine. By this time, as we finish out English 102, it's my hope that by now you know appropriate document length based on audience and purpose. Because I can't be with you to tell you how long an email needs to be to your boss. I can't be with you to tell you how long a presentation that you're going to deliver to the board of directors needs to be. You're on your own now, and you can do it. I believe in you. I trust you. So show me. Show me that you know that. Proofreading and editing. Make sure you proofread and edit. Hello, English teacher here. I am your audience. And be sure you conclude, and you might conclude the piece by examining how the habits might be utilized in future academic and professional writings and endeavors. So, the last piece I really think I need to touch on, and I always think that students get nervous about, is evidence and sources. And that's because it can be so tricky finding good, reliable sources and documenting those sources. And so, I think that often students get a lot of anxiety about this, and for good reason, because you do need to kind of feel your way around and make sure you're documenting these sources so people think that you have good authority and ethos as a writer. Sorry, I need to take a drink of water. Thank you. I'm talking a lot and I'm not getting a break. So, students might use their own writing from their academic career as evidence to support claims they might make about their progress. So that could be that you get a direct quote from your first major assignment in English 101. Maybe when you're talking about one of the habits, you want to say, I want to I can see so much growth when I look back at my first assignment from English 101 and I wrote this quote, blah, 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 blah. And then when I look at my last major assignment from English 102 and I wrote something like this, I can really see how, you know, I've developed the habit of curiosity, or I really can see how I've developed the habit of engagement, the tool of engagement. So you might use writings from your own academic career, and that's fine. You don't need to have a citation for that. You just need to tell us where it came from. And I hope that you'll use direct quotes from past assignments, or if you didn't take English 101 and it was like 20 years ago when you took English 101, a nice anecdote will be fine. Um, but if you took English 101 in the fall with me and your D2L is still active, maybe pull something from that. I don't know. Might not be a bad idea. Students might use evidence such as grades, participation, and attendance records to provide support where necessary. So it's perfectly fine if you decide to do a presentation and you wanted to say, look, here's my persistence. I had perfect attendance. It's fine if you want to pull screenshots, that sort of thing. You might use evidence from your professional lives to support claims where necessary. It's fine if you wanted to use an example from work, though I do think you should mainly focus on, your experience as in in the academic realm. But if you wanted to use some evidence from your professional lives, that's perfectly fine. Just make sure in your examples that you're protecting the privacy of any customers or your company, or it's probably fine if you list like what company you work for. But if you're a nurse, don't name patients. That would be bad. So think about your professional etiquette when it what your profession defines as ethical behavior if you do decide to share those sorts of anecdotes. Again, I really want you focusing on the first two types of sources. Um, I think it's fine to talk about your professional life, but really we're here to talk about your academic life right now. So I'd really like you to focus on that, but it might be useful, but you can if you need to or you find it really demonstrates something important about the academic side. Um, so just if you don't use anything about your professional life, that's fine. So I hope that explains it. You should quote, summarize, and or paraphrase from the framework for success in post-secondary writing. So you might give definitions, you might give explanations. If you do that, appropriate in-text citations, works cited should be provided for these types of references adhering to MLA formatting style guidelines. So if you should be doing that, okay? You need to have at least some quotes from the framework. I want to see that you read it and you understood it and that you're applying it to your reflection. Students might, but are not required to, and you probably won't, use a relevant outside source for a claim and evidence reasons. If there's some super compelling reason that you need to use an outside source, like a quote or something like that, that's fine, just cite it. But I don't think many students are going to need to do that, and it's certainly not my expectation that you use outside sources for this. It really should be about you, okay? If you decide to use a digital tool to create your assignment, uh, I think digital projects look great when they have pictures and screenshots for visual interest. This is kind of boring because I don't have a nice presentation like I typically do for you, and you're just having to look at the screen. So I think it is nice when students have visual interest when they do digital projects, and uh, it's great if you do. Just make sure if you don't own the photo or you didn't take it or it's not a screenshot of your own personal stuff, that you give credit to the photographer or website that you took the photo from. Okay? So these are just some guidelines and hopefully for major assignment 4 and unit 4, and hopefully this helped you to see kind of what I'm looking for. I think my last piece of advice about this for you to consider is honestly, I'm just looking for you to reflect on your experience throughout English 101 and 102. I'm not asking you to reinvent the wheel here. Tell me, what was your experience like? How have you met your educational goals? What do you need to learn next? How have you fostered the 8 habits of mind through your first year composition courses or your other academic and professional development? Just tell me about yourself. Tell me how it's relevant. That's it. Don't overthink it. Trust me. Don't overthink it. This is supposed to be an assignment that, it's not an assignment that you're dialing in or anything, but it's supposed to be an assignment that is getting you to think about yourself and as a writer, a thinker, and a learner. It is not supposed to be a torture assignment. Okay? It's not supposed to be an assignment to that demands some sort of weird perfection. Okay? I'm just wanting you to reflect. And I really look forward to hearing how you reflect. I want to hear about it. I really want to hear how your first year composition sequence went. I want to know as a teacher and a professional who is interested in how students think and learn, I want to know what your experience has been like so that I can help you in the future be an even better writer and thinker. So, I hope that you found this video helpful. Stay safe, stay healthy, wash your hands, and if you have any further questions, always email me or ask on the class discussion board.